Hello, my name is Mr. Southgate and I'm your brass and woodwind teacher at Penrail Comprehensive School. And welcome to, I suppose, what we could call your lockdown lesson. Now, today I thought it'd be a really nice and simple idea just for us to look at a couple of the Christmas songs which I gave you at the end of our last lesson. And for this lesson, we're going to look at the song Evening Prayer from the opera Hansel and Gretel, and also one or both of the songs O du Fröhlich and Silent Night. Now, starting of course with Evening Prayer, the most important thing to note about this song is actually the tempo. Now, tempo is the speed of the beat in the music. So for example, 1, 2, 3, 4 would be quite a quick tempo, whereas 1, 2, 3, 4 would be a slow tempo. So what is the tempo of this piece? Well, it says slow at the beginning. Well, we know that much. That's an easy word to understand. But there's a picture of a crotchet equals 69, and that means the speed is a crotchet. Every crotchet beat, one beat note, is 69 beats per minute. Now, what does this mean? Well, if I turn on my metronome here, this means every single beat, 1, 2, 3, 4, is this speed. Okay. So why does this mean that tempo is super important for this song? Well, if we look at the very first phrase, we have 2 full bars with a phrase mark over them, and in woodwind music we would interpret that as meaning that we want to play it as smoothly as possible, and we usually do that through slurring. Well, that means that there are 7 whole notes, nearly 2 whole bars at that speed, at that tempo, to play, and potentially to play in one breath. So already by knowing that this piece is quite slow, we are having to consider blowing or using proper breath control for our instrument. So we want to make sure that we warm up properly before we play any of these kinds of songs. And we won't do a full warm up today because I'm just doing this video as something that you can help follow maybe. But what we could do to help practice for this type of song is what we call some long tones and long notes. So you might, I'll remind ourselves of that tempo, place few notes, maybe semi-breves, that's 4 beat notes, just to the speed of that playing. So we'll start with a B. It could just go. Or I could change notes. Because we're aiming for 2 of those in one breath, we might consider slurring between 2 notes. So I might play a B for 4 beats, followed by an A for 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and that's just proved to you there that if you don't breathe properly, that you might run out of breath before the end of the phrase. Okay, so we take a big normal breath in. Calmly breathe out. Remember, we're not blowing the air out, we're just letting the air come out naturally like we're breathing. Breathe in, breathe out, breathe in. And then, just because I'd done a couple of breathing exercises before I tried to play the notes, it was much, much easier for me to play the 2 notes together. Okay, I'll turn the metronome off there. Okay, so how we play those 7 notes, here they are. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, and in the next little bit, we've just got to remember about our C sharps. That's just our pinky. And how the rule of the sharps works in bars. So the first note in that next bar is a normal C. Then we have a C sharp. The third note is also still a C sharp because it's in the same bar. And then we have our D. Now when we're playing C sharps, I just want you to be absolutely clear that you don't need to lift your hand up and move it off the flute. You have a nice stable position. So you've got a B, for example, with our thumb on the back, first finger here and pinky here, and our thumb also supporting on this side, and the side of my hand here supporting the flute here, and my chin as the other little pivot point. So that means when I change my B to a C, for example, all I'm doing is lifting up this thumb, but everything is still secure and not fluttering about and moving around. When I do that and change that into a C sharp, okay, yes, I move my hand quite a lot so you can see, but you don't need to even do that. You just lift up the fingers. And again, everything stays nice and stable. So B, B, C sharp, sorry, B, C, C sharp, okay? Okay, so I was talking about tempo and the speed of the music and how important breath control is in this piece. If you look right at the very end of the music, you see some words that say poco rit. That's the last 3 bars, poco rit. And that means to start slowing down. In addition, we have a pause indication on the very, very last note. And that pause means that that last E is going to be held on for longer than 4 beats. So we've already slowed down, and what we've slowed down to, we've got to hold on that beat, that last note to more than 4. Moreover, we've got a slur indication from the F, the bar before, to that E, which means really that we've got to try and do those 2 notes at the very least in one breath. So that means we've got to hold on our breath even longer than we did before. Okay. For an example, we may have slowed down this much. So you've got to the F, and it's F, E, and pause. So when you're practicing this type of piece, it's really important to practice our breath control and to see maybe playing long notes. I did an example of where we played 4-beat notes before, but it might be helpful to try and increase that to maybe 6 beats. Try and hold notes on for 6 beats before another one. Or maybe even try one whole note with one nice and lovely clear note for maybe 8 beats long, and perhaps even further. So we've got slurring and phrase being important here as well as tempo. But I think the trickiest part of this song is the 3rd line from bar 22. And this is where we really need to think about the rhythm. Now remember, I use some silly words sometimes to help us with rhythm. So crotchets, I just say the word T, because that's a 1-beat word. T, 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 for example. And for quavers, I say coffee, because it's half, 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 quaver, quaver, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and coffee, 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 coffee. So the rhythm of this next bit will remind ourselves of the tempo as well. 2, 3, 4. So the rhythm of the next bit is tea, 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 coffee, tea, 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 coffee, tea, coffee, tea, coffee, tea, coffee, tea, coffee, 3-beat notes. Once you're happy that you've got that rhythm right and that you've identified what the notes are, maybe played it a few times with the notes and the rhythm, the next tricky bit about this is that there is a mixture of slurred bits and tongued bits. And to get the full effect of the piece at this point, we want to get those bits right. So it goes slur, tongue, slur, tongue, slur, 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 slur. Now, I'm not trying to pretend that I sang any of those notes correctly. It's just more important knowing where you need to be slurring, and where you are going, are you simply tonguing, using the ta, 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 ta. Okay. So put it together. Again, we'll check the tempo. And once you've managed to play it for a few times, just like I did there, trying to work out where you slur and where you tongue, and you've got the notes correct and your fingers are happy with the sounds and the movement, that's when we're going to go back to our original idea of thinking about breath control and where it's best, most appropriate to breathe without disrupting the flow. For example, then you may have noticed I breathed almost after every slur, and that's not the most efficient or the nicest sounding way of playing the sound and the songs. So in our lessons, we might get to the stage which I got to just then, and then we're going to help go even further by making it sound even smoother. So we've got a lot of slurring in this piece and a lot of bits of tonguing. We need to watch out for tempo, so the speed of the music, and maybe some of the notes, the accidentals like those C sharps, but there's not many accidentals. It's mostly the notes which are in the key signature are the notes that you're playing. When we get to the next stage of the song, we're going to be looking at the dynamics too, so how loud we're supposed to be and how quiet we're supposed to be, and all of the crescendos and diminuendos. But for the time being, please just look at the song. Please go slowly and just think about breath control and making the clearest sound possible. So what about one of, or both of our other two songs that we've got here? So we've got Silent Night and Ode Fröhlich. Well, first of all, I should say that with both of them, they're a little bit simpler for flute playing. There isn't too many complicated rhythms. Silent Night maybe will take a little bit more work with rhythms than Ode Fröhlich. For dynamics, how loud and quiet we are, Ode Fröhlich is virtually mezzo forte, medium loud all the way through, so we don't have to worry too much about that. Silent Night is mezzo piano, quite quiet almost all the way through, apart from near the end where there's a crescendo to a forte, loud, and then a decrescendo getting quieter to the finish. So far, so straightforward. Now you probably don't know Ode Fröhlich, so we'll have to learn the rhythms and how it sounds all together. But the thing with all of these songs to remember is that we're playing as part of an ensemble. So you will not always be playing the melody, the tune. So what I mean by that is, for example, in Silent Night, we may start off and it will look Silent Night, and in your head you're going to be going Holy Night, and then the next bit of the song in your head. But that's not actually how the piece of music is going to go and works. You will have the tune sometimes and other instruments will have the tune some other times, and actually because of the arrangement of it, it's not going to be following exactly the song as you might hear it or know it in your brain. So it's important to remember that when you're moving a little bit in the music, you might want to be heard a little bit, but when you've got static notes, for example at bar 5, you want to maybe be a little bit quieter so that someone else can be heard a little bit more. So with Silent Night, we have G, A, G, which is that we know from Silent Night. But the next bit is the same rhythm. We're expecting Holy Night, but it's not that, it is. Okay, so it's a little bit more of an ensemble playing where it blends together to make a fantastic sounding piece. Both of these pieces are andante, which means at walking pace, so we're not going to be rushing. Okay, so we're going to be nice and slow and steady. So what about bar 5? What do we have there? Well, we've just got 4 notes in a row, 3 beats each, and we want to keep that steady tempo, whatever speed that we're going at, to play them together. There is a phrase mark over them, which implies we should slur them. However, if you run out of breath a little bit before that, I would recommend breathing after the first 2 bars. And the most important thing about the phrase mark is to make it sound smooth, okay? So I'm going to do that now. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. notice that I breathed after the first two notes there. The other thing about Silent Night maybe to consider are a couple of the accidentals that we have. So in bar number 12, for example, we have a B flat, and that B flat only applies to that B. All of the other Bs in the piece are normal B naturals. For the B flat, you could use this fingering, so it's the same as normal B plus the forefinger on the F key there. Or you might simply move from a regular B shape and move your thumb across from the big button across upwards to the one on the top, and that will also give you a B flat. For this song, it doesn't matter which of those you choose. Neither one is more efficient than the other. I know we've been looking at both during lessons, but for this one, it's whichever is most comfortable for you. The second accidental to be aware of is the G sharp. That's finger 1, 2, 3, and pinky, and that is in bar 22. So it's the same as regular G, thumb 1, 2, 3, pinky, plus left hand pinky as well on the G sharp key. It's the same fingering for both the lower G sharp and the high G sharp. So we will look at all of these songs in much more detail in the lessons. I just wanted to give you a little brief overview and to be aware of dynamics, slurring and tempo, and just staying nice and steady. If you have a metronome at home like me, you could even set one off and then play along to that as good practice. So I hope you've enjoyed your little lockdown lesson and have a lovely week. And I shall see you hopefully face to face very, very shortly. So thank you very much. Bye bye. Bye bye.